not much left to do in the sports stadiums. We only have these football players here, as well as one more tennis ass to dispose of, and then we can move on to the Relic Passage. So, while I'm fighting these last few trainers here, I want to come back to, of course, what I've been talking about a lot lately, Mega Evolutions, because we have had some information over the weekend at the Pokemon Game Show regarding these. As it turns out, the bonus condition for transforming isn't really a condition at all. You just have to trigger the transformation in battle by use of a button when you get to choose your move, and it does not cost a turn. So, as a result, basically the only opportunity cost that you miss out on is your held item. That's basically all there is to it. Of course, if you don't use the free switch after your own Pokemon died, then it means that you're probably going to have to take a hit once you've switched in before you get to pick your move. But you probably would have had to take a hit either way, so it's not really a big loss. For all intents and purposes, you only have to have the proper Mega Stone equipped, and that is it. There is a problem that one may have with that, but that's depending on just how much the stats are affected by the Mega Forms, and it's the fact that the Mega Stones have the potential to obsolete any other option on any Pokemon that gets them, which is fine on Pokemon like Kangaskhan or Absol or Mawile, mind you, but on the likes of Mewtwo or Blaziken or Lucario, that may be a bit of a problem considering how strong they already are. So, as a result, I don't know for sure, but I'm under the impression that it's possible that at least for these higher-end Pokemon, that, well, the appropriate stats may be increased, but others may be decreased as a result. For example, Blaziken could potentially get a boost to attack and speed, but lose out in terms of defense. Maybe not as much as the stat boosts themselves, but it would be a deal sort of like Porygon 2 compared to Porygon Z, where Porygon 2 has better defenses, but Porygon Z has better special attack and speed, but lower defenses, but an overall higher stat total nonetheless. And for God's sake, can I have something that my Volcarona can kill? I'm trying to train it here, and everything I get knows frigging Rock Slide! God! Oh, well, that's just great. But anyway, now that I've said my piece about what we know so far of Mega Evolutions, I just want to come back to something I've said about Kangaskhan, potentially getting, parental bond, potentially being like a clone of huge power that's also sub-breaking or something like that. To be fair, we don't know about that mechanic, if the second attack will be as strong as the first, because remember, it's the baby that's hitting, and it would be surprising if the baby hit as hard as the mother. Though, if the baby, well, that's just great. Now I'm pretty sure there's a Pokemon that's going to die here. It's going to be Lilligant, definitely, because it's going to be targeted by fire moves. But if I switch out Lilligant for Excadrill, then it is going to die. So, either way, I'm screwed. So, I'm going to have to sacrifice a Pokemon here. Man, that doesn't happen too often that I actually lose a Pokemon in these Let's Plays, but figures that it would have to be in a double battle, since my team is definitely not built to to handle two Darumakas at the same time. But either way, I was sort of hoping that one of the fire punches would miss because of Hustle, because that's right, Darumaka has Hustle as an ability in case you've forgotten. But ironically, I think that if they didn't have Hustle, I think Lilligant might actually have been able to survive that onslaught, because Hustle's attack boost is pretty big. We're talking about 50% here. whereas the accuracy is lowered by 20% of normal, which results in an overall 20% increase in damage output. But since both hits connected, it's safe to say that given the damage that they did to me, if they didn't have Hustle, then I might have actually survived, which is kind of weird in a way. But yeah, as I was about to say, when it comes to Parental Bond, if you can use a move twice in the same turn, and the second is supposed to be weaker than the first, then how would it work for moves like Work Up and Sing that do not have a certain base power because they're not offensive moves? And the answer to that is I honestly have no idea. And I'm mentioning these moves specifically because these are moves that Kangaskhan might be able to use if they're used twice, because Sing would effectively be raised to 80% accuracy, and Work Up would essentially be transformed into a Swords Dance. That would also increase special attack, but who the fuck uses special moves on Kangaskhan anyway? Also, I want to come back on a mistake that I made in the last video, and, well, it doesn't have to do with the fact that the gameplay in the second segment of the video was way too loud. You should have seen my face when someone in the comments told me that it was too loud. It was like, are you fucking serious? Did I really just do that? Yeah, that was kind of frustrating, so that's why I uploaded that extra video with the second segment with gameplay with normal volume. I want to apologize for that. Anyway, I'm done with the football players. There's one tennis ass left to beat over at the small court, so I'm going to take care of that right now. The mistake that I made had to do with the fact, or rather the not fact, that EVs were referred to as base stats. What the game refers to as base stats, in fact, is like your actual stats. So, for example, an Excadrill that has 300 attack, that's a result of, you know, its IVs, its EVs, its base attack stat. Well, that would be what it's... Are you serious? Can I get anything that my Volcarona can kill? Well, I guess not, and it's not because Ember or Gus are too weak, it's just the fact that I'm getting all the wrong types. I'm getting stuff that knows Rock Slide, I'm getting water types, and that's just highly unfortunate because the next place I'm going to is the Relic Passage, which, well, it's a cave full of rocks. Boldor knows Rock Slide. Girder knows Rock Slide. It's just going to be complete obliteration if I try to use it there. So, yeah, highly unfortunate. At least I managed to get my Volcarona up to level 39, which isn't too bad. And as I said, it's going to be pretty dominant in Chargestone Cave. So I shouldn't freak out as much. I'm just hoping that I'm going to meet some trainers in the Relic Passage and possibly Route 6 that are going to be easier to defeat for my Volcarona. So now I am going to put Lilligant in the lead. Yeah, that's right. Put the dead Pokemon in the lead. Brilliant idea. But of course I'm going to heal it at a Pokemon Center, but I'm going to head over to Driftveil City, then do that, then head into the Relic Passage. So, what I was getting at here is that that 300 attack, which is probably not the real figure anyway, but it's... Oh, got Mr. Metal here, so let's see, what do we got? Battle Repeater, which is for getting a lot of rematches at the Sports Domes, I assume. Guiding Champ for making a lot of recommendations at Join Avenue. OK Souvenir Getter for getting enough souvenirs from random passersby. I hate this word, at the Join Avenue. So, yeah, what I was trying to say was that it's a base stat in the sense that it can be buffed or debuffed in battle. For example, if you use Swords Dance on a Pokemon with 300 attack, it's going to be 600 instead. So as a result, the 300 is the base stat compared to what it could be buffed or debuffed, which makes sense in a way. I prefer referring to that concept as real stat or actual stat or whatever, because base stat... Oh! Find treasures. I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is one of the FunFest missions that give you shards. As I was talking about earlier, it's one of the best ways to obtain shards. This one, I think, gives you mostly, I think it's red and blue, I'm not too sure, while the one you get in black too, in that same place, gives you the other two kinds. Predominantly, but there's another one that you get later on, I think it's in the post-game, where you can easily get all four kinds of shards. Or I may be remembering it all wrong and talking out of my ass here, but I think that's how I remember it being. So, just to wrap up what I was talking about, base stat, I think we're all familiar with the concept. It's basically the number that's plugged into the formula for determining the real stat, and it depends on the species and absolutely nothing else. For example, Mew has 100 base stats across the board. Another example, there are so many Pokemon I'm struggling to decide. For example, Darmanitan has a base 140 attack. Emerald Deoxys has 180 base speed, and so on and so forth. So, I don't think that they're going to manage to change the terminology that's used within the fan base. Though, the weird thing is that I think that they're well aware of the terms that are being used by the fan base to refer to various concepts. For example, IVs and EVs, which have been around since the dawn of time, though I think those terms have only been in use since Generation 3, because in Generations 1 and 2, things worked a bit differently. Well, IVs were sort of mostly the same, except you could only draw numbers between 0 and 15, except they were multiplied by 2 as opposed to getting a random number between 0 and 31, and they were called DVs, I think, for... I don't even remember what the D stands for. I'm probably going to have someone in the comments that is going to take care of that. More like 1,700 people, more likely, because that's what usually happens, but whatever. And the EVs were referred to as stat experience because they worked a lot differently back then. Because nowadays, whenever you defeat a Pokemon, you get a few points in a very specific stat. For example, defeating a Ghastly will give you 1 EV in special attack, defeating a Haunter will give you 2, and defeating a Gengar will give you 3. But there are a few species that will give you EVs in more than one stat. But how it worked back then was that you gained what was called at the time stat experience in all stats, and the amount you got in each stat corresponds to the base stat of the Pokemon that you defeated. For example, if you defeat a Chansey, you're going to have 250 EVs or stat experience or whatever you want to call it in HP, but only 5 in attack and defense, 105 in special, that kind of thing, and that is true of every species that you encounter and defeat. And you could also max out every stat back then in the first 2 generations, but nowadays there's a hard cap in place where you can only fully max out 2 stats or go halfway with 4, or well, it's a very flexible system. You just have to decide what you want to do with your Pokemon, but you cannot get more than 510 EVs overall, though the last 2 are fairly useless considering that, well, 1 stat point is going to be worth 4 EVs at level 100, and 510 isn't a multiple of 4, but 508 is. Same reason why you shouldn't go past 252 EVs on 1 stat, because you can go all the way to 255, but 252 is the last multiple of 4, so that's why many EV spreads will be 252, 252, and 4. But that's enough about this rant on stats. Next time, I promise you that we will be moving on to another subject.